Hi, welcome back. My name is Andrew Zhang. If this is your first time here on my channel, I'm a pre-med student, currently in my last year of college, and recently I released a reaction video and I had a lot of fun making that. And so I thought I would give back to the MCAT community by making a MCAT tier list video. Quick disclaimer, all of these resources are things that I personally used during my study journey. The MCAT study journey isn't a one-size-fits-all for everybody. So just because I feel like a resource is super good, or if I feel like a resource is super terrible, doesn't mean that it won't work for you. This is just simply what I did. Also, another thing, this video was inspired by Uworld's tier list. I think he has a lot of great info in there as well. For the first part of this MCAT tier list video, I want to talk a little bit about the resources that I used primarily for the content review period of studying for the MCAT. Typically, taking the MCAT, you divide it into two different sections. One is first for content review, and secondly is going to be the practice questions, practice exams, all that fun stuff. So this first part will primarily consist of the resources that I used to learn the content that's going to be on the MCAT. And so without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so starting off for our tier list, I have the Kaplan book set. I believe the book set ends up in the B tier, and this is because it's really nice because it has the individually sectioned off content and percentages for every single section or topic. However, for things like Psych, cars, and physics and math, I feel like just wasn't as useful for me for Kaplan. Another thing is, by using Kaplan, something that I found myself doing a lot of the time was just passively reading the material rather than actively engaging with what was going on. And so, in my opinion, I feel like the Kaplan book set is a really great way to frame your mindset around some of the topics that you have to know. I don't think the Kaplan book set by itself is enough. I think it's great as a starting point to see what you know and what you don't know. However, it's always great to cross-reference with some of the other resources on this list. And so that's why I've put it in B. Alright, next up I have Anki. You probably heard about Anki a lot, especially if you watch a lot of these different, MCAT related videos. Everyone's talking about Anki. Personally, it's in the S tier. Anki provides you with the spaced repetition that you need to memorize some of the concepts, or just straight up definitions, or just random facts that you have to memorize. For example, glycolysis, even amino acids, to throw inside of an Anki deck and really just test myself. I definitely attribute a lot of my long-term memorization and long-term memory of some of the content that I learned initially from those Kaplan books to Anki. Next up, I have YouTube, and you can see for the box some of the things or YouTube channels that I really liked. Ninja Nerd, AK Lectures, Khan Academy, Organic Chemistry Tutor. Some of these YouTube channels I'd watched throughout my undergrad career to help me out with some of my classes, but they also include a lot of the topics that are covered on the MCAT. YouTube is going to be on the A tier, because if there was any topic that I was confused on while studying for the MCAT, I would simply go on YouTube, search it up, watch a quick 5 or 10 minute YouTube video on it, go back to, let's say, that Kaplan textbook, and then whatever I had just read makes a lot more sense. For example, in terms of menstrual cycle, when you're learning that in biology content review period, I'm pretty sure I watched the menstrual cycle hormone video by Khan Academy at least 10 or 15 times when I was studying for my MCAT. But all in all, YouTube is a really great resource if you're confused about some of the things that an Anki card, pre-made Anki card is saying, or things that the Kaplan textbook is saying that might just be a little bit too briefly covered or not explained well enough in the book. Alrighty, next up on our tier list, I have the Psych document. This is actually two different PDFs. There's a 300-page doc and a 100-page doc made by Khan Academy and I think MedBros. They made this a couple years ago, and this combines all the Psych terms and content that you have to know, and this was made in collaboration with AAMC, so that's how you know all that content stuff is legit. It's going to be in the C tier because I found it to be super hard to read through the document and actually retain a lot of the knowledge that I had read. I think it's a great resource to refer back to as either you're doing Psych Anki cards, or if things come up, let's say on a practice question and you're really confused and you try Googling the term and it doesn't come up on Google, maybe Control Fing the document, see if you can find it on there. If not, it might be a good resource to look at 1 month leading up to your exam, but I think when you're learning Psych Soc for the very first time, you're better off using resources like Anki. All right, next up we have Uworld. For me personally, I would give Uworld an S tier as well, right next to Anki. I would actually put it a little bit above Anki, and this is because there are so many Uworld practice questions that cover such a wide variety and range of topics, and every single answer option or answer choice is an opportunity to learn more. For example, I found it super helpful to learn the different types of chromatography, learn some additional Psych Soc terms that I've never heard of, and throw those into. And so Uworld is that extra padding or that extra resource to expose you to even more terms and expose you to even more topics that you may have been iffy on in undergrad or you may have just never seen before. I always learn more when I'm engaging with whatever content I'm doing, and so despite the content review being a form of practice question, I still believe that it has a spot on the content review section of this video because it does cover so much content within the 2,000 plus practice questions that are still offered. Next up, this might seem a little bit random, but it's the miles down document. I'm gonna put this in the D tier, and the reason for this is because I've actually heard of some of my friends telling me that right when they start out studying for their MCAT journey, they're gonna just read the 86 page or mile down, do some Jack Weston, and kind of just run into the MCAT willy-nilly. I wish I could have done that, and I wish we could all do that, but personally for me, I feel like the mile down document is really great to look at a couple weeks leading up to the MCAT. However, if you're using the mile down document to learn content for the very first time, the content that's being covered on Mile Down is what's going to be on your MCAT. However, the depth at which it explains things is essentially none. And so you would have to supplement it with YouTube videos, additional notes maybe, or additional Anki. I would rather just open up the Kaplan textbook and read, let's say, the reproductive system in depth rather than having a very brief outline or overview of just the important keywords. All right, those are some of the resources that I'd use while studying. Like I said before, there's no one size fits all. Hell, some of the things I mentioned here that I put in B tier, maybe in C tier or A tier for you. And so it really is different for everybody. Just because you did something one way doesn't mean it's bad or good. This is personally just what I use to test prep and what I personally think and advise my students that I tutor. But yeah, I hope this video was helpful to some degree, and if it was, please leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, and I'll definitely be releasing a part 2 sometime for all of the different resources that I use for test prep. So those include practice questions and practice exams. And until then, I hope you guys have a good time studying for the MCAT.